Okay, so we are on page 38 and 39 in your Voyages book. Actually, I don't think any of this takes any notes on the board. But pronouns after than or as. So I feel like this is actually kind of a tricky lesson because you have to kind of mentally put in words in the sentence that aren't there. You have to kind of think what the sentence is trying to say in order to choose the correct pronoun, okay? So here you're kind of trying to decide if you should use a subject pronoun or an object pronoun after than or after the words than or as. So when you're using than and as, those two words, you're comparing one thing to another, right? So the first thing you have to do is kind of figure out what they're comparing. So I think we should read in the book, and I can expand from the book. So on page 38, I need someone to read the first paragraph on page 38. Joey.
The words than and as are used in comparison. These conjunctions join two clauses. Sometimes part of the second clause is omitted. You may need to add the missing parts mentally to determine to use a subject pronoun or object pronoun after than or as.
Okay, so you guys, what are clauses? What are clauses? Not Santa Claus, no. Clauses are like groups of words. They're really, actually, they're another word for a sentence, okay? The reason that they call them clauses instead of sentences is because when we think of a sentence, we think of something that expresses like a whole complete thought, okay? Like you don't really have any questions. It's pretty clear, but a clause can express a complete thought. When it expresses a complete thought, we call it an independent clause. Independent, like you can do things on your own. You can stand by a clause can stand by itself. And when it can't stand all by itself, like when you need something more, it's called a dependent clause. So that's why we call them clauses, because sometimes they're not a whole complete sentence. Because a complete sentence has a subject and a verb and expresses a complete thought. But in a dependent clause has a subject and a verb, but it doesn't complete or express a complete thought. Like if I just said, I can, it has a subject, I, it has a verb, can, but do you know what I'm talking about? No. You need more information, so that would be a dependent clause, okay? So than or as, and that's why sometimes when you guys are getting like older in your grammar, like sometimes it's hard to pick out parts of speech and stuff in the sentences because you have two clauses together. So it's kind of hard sometimes to pick out subjects and verbs because there are actually two of them because they're two separate sentences really. Okay? But when we have than or as, that's what we have. We have an independent clause and then a dependent clause. Okay, so let's look at that first example. Michelle is better at science than I. So one part of the sentence, Michelle, well actually both of them are dependent clauses. Michelle is better at science than I. How would you complete, if you were going to complete that sentence, what do you think is missing after I? What are they comparing? Joey? I am. Michelle's better at science than I am. Right? Because, so they just left that out. But once you fill it in, that's how you can decide whether you use I or me. Okay? Because sometimes, because you wouldn't say, Michelle is better at science than me am. Okay? So you kind of have to determine what the rest of the sentence is. So the next example, this week's big science test worried her as much as me. Okay, so there, what words do you think are left out? This week's big science test worried her as much as me. Are you, no? Okay, I'm going to just fill it in. This week's big science test worried her as much as it worried me. Right? That's really what they're trying to express. So there you wouldn't say, that's why you chose me, because it's the object of those words that are missing. Okay? This week's big science test, you wouldn't say, this week's big science test worried her as much as it worried I. Okay? So that's how you determine, by filling in those missing words. Okay? All right. Let's see. Avery, can you read the next paragraph?
Study these examples. The words that might be omitted from the clauses are in brackets. In the second and third sentences, Helena is being compared to Sarah.
All right. Elena is on the basketball team. Sarah is faster than she. Okay? And really, what they're saying is Sarah is faster than she is fast. Or you might even just think Sarah is faster than she is. Okay? Yeah? Oh, okay. Sorry, Liz. Okay, if you flipped it around, if you're doing one with her, the coach gives Sarah more playing time than her. The words that are missing, the coach gives Sarah more playing time than he gives her. Okay, so you choose the object if the action's being done to that pronoun. You choose the subject if they're going to be doing the action, or they're the subject. Okay. So in the second sentence, the pronoun after than is the subject. Okay, I'm sorry. I kind of read that wrong. In the second sentence, the pronoun after than is the subject of the clause introduced by than. So the correct pronoun is she, a subject pronoun. Because if you took those words off after than, she is fast, she is the subject of that clause, okay? In the third sentence, the pronoun after than is the direct object of the verb gives. So the correct pronoun is her, an object pronoun. So you look after than or after as, and then you decide if that pronoun is the subject or the object. So if they're doing the action or they're the subject like she is, then you use a subject pronoun. If something's happening to that pronoun, then it's an object pronoun. Okay? So then he gives her, that's happening to her. All right. Let's see. Okay, so every once in a while, a sentence will look like it can take either, or you could really use it either way. So I've known Lisa longer than she has known Lisa. Okay, I've known Lisa longer than I've known her. Okay, so it just depends what you're saying. In sentences with than or as, remember to supply the missing words mentally to check for correct pronoun usage. So what I would say is just go ahead and try to put the words in there and see if that sentence makes sense. Okay? Really, what they want you to do too is try to figure out what's being compared. Okay? So let's just, does anybody have any questions right now? It's kind of tricky. So you just have to mentally put in the words that are missing. Okay? So let's just try a little practice. You know what? Let's do it this way. Let's have you work together for a few minutes on exercise 1 and 2. You can just write down in your notebook what you guys would put for an answer. You can work with someone close to you, either group of 2 or 3. Actually, let's do this. Let's, I guess it doesn't really work the way. Yeah, work with someone close to you in a group of 2 or 3, and just write down what you would put for the answers for exercise 1 and exercise 2, and talk it out with each other. Okay? No.